She can't even walk. Why is she still working?" They laughed. They didn't know the woman they shoved out of her chair had once pulled men from fire under live rounds. But the Marines who showed up, they remembered. Carla Bishop was never one for ceremony. That's why no one in Tillamook, Oregon knew she used to command convoys through Afghanistan or that she'd been awarded 2 Bronze Stars and a Purple Heart. All they knew was that she folded napkins in the back corner of Moss Point Diner, moved slow and didn't talk much, and that was fine with her. She liked the rhythm. For knife napkin again, coffee stains on her jeans, dull ache in her hip. Her wheelchair made a quiet click every third turn. It was predictable, and after everything she'd lived through, predictability was a gift. The diner was a hole in the wall off Route 101. Locals called it the Spoon. Final booths cracked from years of sun. Jukebox stuck on the same 3 tracks. Windows that never quite closed all the way. The kind of place where truckers got bottomless coffee and high schoolers flirted over fries. But for Carla, it was something else entirely. It was a place to disappear. No one asked about the military pin on her faded flannel. No one commented on the scars along her knuckles. Even the regulars like Mr. Choi at Booth 2 or Teresa from the pharmacy just smiled politely. Nobody knew she'd once carried 2 bleeding Marines out of a burning Humvee under mortar fire, that she lost her leg when the second one exploded. Nobody knew she'd taken the full military payout and dumped it into a nonprofit called Second Signal, a place for homeless, disabled, and queer veterans to find housing work therapy. She didn't need credit. She needed impact. And yet every Tuesday and Friday she showed up for a short shift. Not because she had to, but because even heroes need somewhere to feel human. The only ones who looked at her differently were the 3 old men who sat near the back by the window. Eli Mercer, Jonas Kim Ray, Du Hall Vietnam, Iraq Desert Storm. They didn't talk much either, just watched. Nodded when she passed. Real ones always recognize each other, even in silence. Then there was Leo, 8 years old. Sat with his grandpa, Big Mike, the diner owner after school most days. Drew monsters on napkins, asked endless questions. Why do you roll and not walk? Do you miss the army? What's your favorite superhero? Carla always answered kindly, patiently, like someone who understood the value of listening. That Friday felt normal. Oregon skies were gray. Carla's hands were stiff. The jukebox was stuck on Johnny Cash. Then the bell over the door jingled and everything changed. 3 men walked in. Heavy boots, black leather road dust. They smelled like speed and ego. Bryce Bull Dugan, Corey McMaddox, and Kyle Rowe, the quiet one. Bull made himself known right away. Loud laugh, loud voice took up space. Mac followed, chewing toothpicks and spitting sarcasm. Kyle lingered, quiet, but his eyes darted like he recognized something he couldn't admit. They stomped to the counter, made jokes loud enough for everyone to hear, loud enough to dominate the room. Carla didn't look up. She didn't need to, but Eli Mercer did. And Jonas and Big Mike from the kitchen watched from the crack in the service door, a towel clenched in his hands. Because even before it got ugly, they felt it. That shift in the air, that unspoken warning only soldiers and survivors know. The storm hadn't arrived yet, but it was coming. Bull dropped into a booth like he owned the place. Boots up on the seat across from him. Mac banged the bell on the counter like it owed him money. Kyle lingered behind, scanning the room, fingers twitching. Yo, this place got waitresses or just mascots, Bull shouted. Mac whistled. Maybe she's rolling slow today. Carla didn't look up. She was at table 6 refilling napkins. Full spotted her. Hey, you wheel girl. Eli sat up straighter. Jonas folded his paper. Doc Hall's hand curled tight on his cane. Carla didn't flinch. She never did. She just finished her task and rolled calmly toward the coffee station. But Bull wasn't done. What's the matter can't hear or can't roll and listen at the same time. From the corner booth, Rena, a college student, quietly opened TikTok and hit record. Her phone caught Bull's smirk, Mac's laugh, Carla's steady back. Mac leaned across the counter, grinning. Bet she gets a disability check and tips. That's double-dipping right chuckles. No one stopped them. Kyle shifted uncomfortably near the entrance. He looked at Carla, then looked away. Something twisted in his eyes. Carla turned slowly. Her voice was even. You gentlemen need something? Bulls sneered. Yeah. Service and a little entertainment. You still got your military ID, or did they pull that when you lost your leg? That's when Big Mike stepped out from the kitchen. Keep it down, he said. You're disturbing the room. Bull turned. And you are owner. Bull smiled coldly. Congrats. You let charity cases serve food here? Mike's jaw clenched. But before he could answer, Carla rolled forward. It's fine, Mike. It's not, he muttered. Carla turned to Bull. Today's special is smoked brisket with Kleslaw. Sandwich or plate? Bull stared. You serious? She stared back. Always he laughed. Plate. And get me a fork. I don't got a bend to pick up, Mac added. And a straw. Unless that's against the ADA. Rena kept filming. The view count began to climb. Carla moved to the register, her shoulders square. Movements precise, but Bull wasn't done. He slid a cup across the table, watching it tip. Oops. Better roll faster. The cup hit the floor. Coffee splashed across Carla's wheels. Leo stood up suddenly. Hey, gasps. Mike stepped forward, but Carla raised a hand. It's fine, kiddo. Bull laughed. No harm done. Just helping her clean up. Right. Mac lifted another cup, right, and then the shove. Not hard, not fast, but deliberate. Mac grabbed the back of Carla's chair and yanked. The motion jolted her. Her prosthetic leg hit the table. A tray fell. Cutlery clattered. Carla's body twisted sideways and dropped. Her shoulder hit first, then her hip, then her head thudding against tile. The diner froze. Total silence. Then Leo screamed and someone dropped a plate. Big Mike roared enough. But the damage had already been done. Carla lay on the floor, arms braced, blood rising in her cheeks. Her chest heaved. Not from pain, from restraint. She didn't yell, didn't sob, just moved slowly, pushing herself upright. Bull clapped. What no combat role? Rena whispered to her phone. He just pulled a disabled vet out of her chair. I'm Liv. Share this now. Across the country, phones lit up. In the diner, Jonas moved first, eyes blazing. You just made a mistake. Bull smirked. Old man, don't. Jonas didn't stop. Du Hall stood too. So did Eli. But before fists could fly, Kyle spoke. Her name's Carla. Everyone turned. Kyle looked like he couldn't breathe. You pulled me out. Camp Bastion 2012. I was trapped under the Humvee. Bull blinked. Wait, what? Mac frowned. What are you talking about? Kyle's voice broke. She saved me. She carried me to the evac zone. I was unconscious, but I know her face. Rena's live stream ticked past 500,000 viewers. Doc Hall stepped forward and you watched them do that to her. Kyle couldn't answer. Carla looked at him. Calm. You didn't stop them. I didn't know what to say. You knew enough. The sirens hadn't started yet. but the world was already watching. The sirens came 5 minutes later. By then, Rena's live stream had passed 1.2 million views. National accounts were sharing it. The hashtags Wheelchair Vet and Second Signal were trending top 5. Journalists were calling the diner. Someone had posted Carla's military file. Another shared a map to the nearest Second Signal location. Inside Moss Point, no one was eating anymore. Jonas was pacing. Doc Hall stood guard by the door. Eli moved to Carla's side, quietly stacking silverware spilled during the fall. The air had changed. Bull and Mac were no longer amused. They looked cornered. Carla stayed in her chair, one hand on the armrest, the other wiping coffee from her pant leg. Her gaze never lifted. Leo sat clutching his sketchbook. Rena whispered updates. She's still not saying anything, just sitting like a stone. Then the door opened. Not a Marine this time. It was Samira, the waitress, who'd hidden in the kitchen. She walked to Carla slowly, a wet cloth in one hand, a glass of water in the other. "I'm sorry," she whispered. For not doing something sooner, Carla nodded. "You're doing something now." Kyle looked ready to cry. He faced Bull and Mech. "You don't understand. She saved me. I was broken. I wanted to die. I had a bottle in one hand and a gun in the other. And then I saw her video. She talked about pain, about survival. I signed up for Second Signal the next day. That's the only reason I'm still breathing." Bull sneered. "So now you're what, her mascot?" Kyle's voice trembled. "Know her proof." Outside, more people were arriving. Not police locals, veterans. A biker club with American flag patches. 2 women in army fatigue stood near the parking lot, cardboard signs in hand. "We see you, Carla." Then Arlo, the counterboy, barely 19, stepped forward. He'd always been quiet, but now he faced the crowd. "She paid for my GED, he said. Said I could be more than this job. Told me I mattered." Max sat hard in the booth. "What the hell is happening?" Doc Hall answered, "You're happening, and for once you're going to answer for it." A car door slammed outside, then another heavy boots on pavement. A green and black government sub pulled up to the entrance. 3 figures stepped out. Captain Danielle Fox, Master Gunnery Sergeant Omar Delaney, and Corporal Jesse Boone. The diner held its breath. Captain Fox opened the door and stepped in, scanning the room like a battlefield. Her voice rang out calm and precise. "We got the call and we got here as fast as we could." Jesse Boone spotted Carla. He froze, then dropped to one knee. Everyone turned. "Ma'am," he said, voice cracking, "you don't remember me, but I remember you." Carla tilted her head, said nothing. Jesse continued. "I was stationed at Pendleton. I was 2 minutes from ending it all. Then someone from your program called, said you'd read my message. You got on the phone with me and stayed until the ambulance came." His eyes filled. "You didn't even know my name, but you saved it anyway." Gasp swept the room. Another live stream began. Fox stepped forward. "We're here on behalf of Second Signal Command Network. We received notice of public assault on a veteran, our founder. We're not law enforcement," she said, "but we are a family." Delaney stood beside Jesse and saluted. Bull rose slowly, eyes darting. "Look, this got out of hand. No Fox cut in. You didn't lose control. You never had it." She turned to Carla. "Ma'am, what do you want us to do?" Carla paused. Every eye turned to her. Outside, the crowd had gone still. She looked at Kyle, then at Leo, then straight into the camera. Nothing she said. Let them walk out. The world's already watching, and this time, they won't forget. Bull looked toward the door, but it was already too late. Across the street, a news van pulled up. Reporters stepped out. One held a still from the live stream. Bull's face frozen mid-smirk. Carla exhaled not from relief but from finality. Bull didn't move. Neither did Matt. For the first time since they'd walked in, they looked small. Not because of the cameras, not even because of the Marines, but because the room had changed. The power they thought they had it evaporated. Doc Hall stepped forward, slow, certain, tapping his cane against the floor. "You can walk out," he said, "but you'll walk through us. Every one of us. You still think she's the weak one," Bull swallowed. Max stood too, threw his hands in the air. "Whatever. We're done here." "Yeah," Rena called from the corner. "So is the country with people like you." As Bull and Mac made their way to the door, the crowd outside parted. Not in welcome and warning. Bones tracked every step. Not a single word was shouted. Just silence. The kind that doesn't forgive. The kind that remembers. Kyle stayed behind. He stood near Carla, trembling. "I can't undo it," he whispered. "But I'll never be quiet again." Carla didn't nod, didn't offer comfort, but she looked him in the eye, then dumped. Outside, the last image the world saw before the door closed was Carla still seated, still calm, coffee-stained, but unbroken. And when the bell jingled one final time, the internet erupted. She hadn't shouted. She hadn't struck back. She hadn't moved an inch. And yet she'd made the entire nation rise. The story could have ended there with viral views, hashtags, and a burst of outrage, but Carla Bishop's name didn't fade with the next cycle. It lit a fuse. By nightfall, the outside of Moss Point Diner looked like a vigil. Dozens stood on the sidewalk, candles in hand. Signs read, "Stand with Carla and Second Signal saved us." Others held up their phones not to film but to salute. Inside, Carla hadn't moved from her booth. Fox, Delaney, and Jesse stayed nearby, not guarding her, just anchoring the moment. Jesse stood closest to the window, fielding interviews through the glass. "I didn't know her name until today," he told a local paper, "but she knew mine when I couldn't even say it." Samira placed a clean plate in front of Carla. "Eat," she said softly. "I'm not hungry. You will be." Carla nodded once. Outside, a group of veterans approached the glass. They didn't knock. They just pressed their palms to the window. One by one, some saluted. Some cried. Some did nothing but stand. Big Mike came over. He placed a folded piece of paper next to Carla's plate. "Someone dropped this off an hour ago." She opened it. Inside was a scanned photo of her in uniform taken 15 years ago. "On the back in thick Sharpie camp bashin', you carried me still breathing." Samira glanced over. "How many lives did you save?" Carla didn't answer. She didn't have the number because it wasn't about numbers. In the back, Rena stood from her booth, still live streaming. She said, "People need to hear it." Fox nodded. "We came prepared." She pulled out a small file folder, handed it to Rena. Rena read aloud. "Staff Sergeant Carla Bishop, USMC, deployed twice to Afghanistan, recognized for battlefield extraction under heavy fire. Survived IED blast. Founded Second Signal, a veteran support initiative that's helped over 8,000 vets across the Pacific Northwest." A gasp rippled through the room. One man whispered, 8,000. "She never took a salary," Rena continued. "Every cent went back into the program. No press, no sponsors, just impact." Carla sat still, but her silence wasn't invisible anymore. It was deafening. Outside, a woman stepped forward, mid-30s, sharp haircut, voice trembling. "She paid my first rent when I left the service. I was sleeping in my car. I never saw her face. Just a note on the envelope. We don't leave our own behind." Another voice, a man in a veteran ball cap. "She drove 4 hours to bring me a job application." said, "If you can't come to the mission, I'll bring the mission to you." A student, she bought my textbooks. A trans vet, she told me I was seen. One by one, the voices layered. A chorus of survival, a chain reaction of carried lives. Rena's live stream hit 3 million views. Local news picked up the feed, then regional, then national. Fox stepped back. "Mom, if I may?" Carla held up her hand. She looked at Jesse. "You said I didn't remember you?" He nodded. "Yes, Mom." She offered the barest smile. "I remember every voice I've ever stayed on the line with his throat closed," she continued. "I didn't do it because I'm strong. I did it because someone once stayed with me." She looked at the camera now, direct, grounded, and maybe this time the country stays. The crowd outside erupted, not in cheers and silence. They removed hats, phones, doubt. Carla didn't stand, she didn't wave, but the entire town rose. And somewhere across the country, so did strangers at bus stops in VA, waiting rooms in classrooms in their own stillness. In Tillamook, someone flipped the open sign on the diner door to say awake. The next morning, Carla woke to a stack of letters outside the diner. Typed notes, napkins, scrolls, receipts, torn notebook paper, all saying the same thing: "You carried us. Now let us carry you inside." The diner didn't open for business that day. It opened for healing. People brought photos, coins, medals, fuel journals. A retired general drove 5 hours from Portland to shake her hand. The mayor arrived, no press team. He carried a proclamation naming March 14th Carla Bishop Day in Tillamook. Carla didn't smile much. She never did. But she allowed herself one when Leo handed her a drawing. It showed her in her chair, surrounded by dozens of people lifting her not on their backs, but with their hands. "You're a superhero," he whispered. That afternoon, Second Signal's donation link crashed, overwhelmed with support. Veterans from every state wrote in. Some gave money, others gave stories, all gave thanks. Then came the school invite. Rena's college asked Carla to speak. She declined, then reconsidered, not to talk about war, but about what happens after. She took the stage in a packed auditorium. No slides, no script, just her chair and the truth. You don't need to carry everything, she told them. You just need to carry someone long enough for them to remember how. A standing ovation followed, not out of duty, but revelation. Later that week, a short film began circulating online. The woman in the booth edited from live stream clips, news segments, testimonies. It didn't show Carla falling. It showed her lifting others. By month's end, that film played on Capitol Hill. And at the Pentagon, a new photo went up. Not of a battlefield, but of a diner and a woman who never stood up but helped the world rise. Anyway, CNN ran a feature 2 days later, titled "The Quiet General." They didn't use combat footage, no clips of medals, just a still photo of Carla holding a coffee mug. In Moss Point diner sleeves, rolled napkin in her lap. The article went viral again, but this time not for outrage, for the reminder. In local libraries, her story became part of Oregon's veterans curriculum, not as a case study but a model. At a Portland high school, students painted a mural. Carla in her chair, surrounded by abstract shapes, symbols of community resilience and dignity. At the base of that mural, they painted, "We don't salute noise. We honor endurance." Carla refused book deals, turned down interviews. She agreed only to one letter handwritten to be read at a national mental health symposium. It said, "I am not special. I just stayed long enough to help others survive the moments they thought they couldn't." If I did one thing right, I hope it was reminding them they were never broken, only tired. And that rest is not weakness, the room cried. A photo of that letter now hangs beside the registration desk at every second signal chapter. It ends simply, "If you're reading this, keep going. You're not done." And neither am I. Back at the diner, business resumed. Coffee flowed, burgers sizzled. Carla returned to folding napkins. Leo kept drawing monsters, and people began driving long distances just to sit quietly in that booth. They didn't ask for autographs. They didn't take selfies. They just wanted to witness calm power. Sometimes they'd ask, "Is she really the one from the video?" Big Mike would nod, and Samira would always add, "She's more." A month passed. Moss Point looked the same, but it wasn't. The air held something different, thicker, warmer, like every inch of the place remembered. Carla still rolled in at 7:00 a.m. sharp, still wore the same flannel, still folded napkins the same way. But now every fold felt like a signature, a quiet act of preservation. Veterans stopped in daily, not to talk about combat, just to sit. Sometimes they ordered coffee, sometimes they didn't. Sometimes they sat in silence for an hour, then left with tears in their eyes. Carla never cried. She just gave them space, and somehow, that was everything. Leo had started drawing again, only now he sketched people who looked like they'd been through something. His latest, Carla pushing a whole mountain uphill with people following behind. He taped it to the fridge without asking. Tourists came, sure, but not for spectacle. They came for something they couldn't name until they sat down, sipped the coffee, watched her fold, and realized it was still just a diner, but the kind that made small actions feel sacred. Second Signal exploded. 5 new chapters in 6 weeks. Jesse Boone became regional lead. Kyle Rowe began weekend outreach. Samira translated forms for Spanish and Arabic-speaking vets. The ones who once hesitated now stepped forward. Arlo finally enrolled in college. Rena launched a podcast called Stay With Me, named after Carla's words to Jesse. Her first episode began, "Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is not hang up." Doc Hall, Eli, and Jonah still met every Sunday. Same table, same silence. But now, every once in a while, they'd raise a coffee cup toward Carla, just high enough for her to see. She always noticed, never made a thing of it. One morning, someone slipped a laminated card under Carla's plate. It had 14 names on it. All people who'd once walked into Second Signal broken. Next to each name, one word here. Carla read it, then tucked it into her wallet next to her old ID and kept folding napkins. Because some heroes don't need endings, they just keep showing up. That winter, something unexpected happened. A woman arrived with a clipboard and a camera crew. Carla braced herself another interview, but instead the woman introduced herself as a VA case officer. She handed Carla a certificate signed by the Secretary of Defense. It named her an honorary guidepost. "It's not a rank," the officer explained. "It's a recognition for people who've helped others find their way back." Carla looked at the gold embossing, then slid it into a drawer. Didn't say a word. It wasn't what she was here for. Later that week, she got a letter. No return address. Inside, just one sentence. "You saved my brother. He never told you, but I will." That one she kept. By spring, a local high school started sending students every Thursday. They folded napkins, bus tables, listened to veterans tell stories not found in textbooks. One girl, Jasmine, came weekly just to watch Carla work. "She doesn't talk much," Jasmine once said, "but every time she folds something, I swear I feel calmer." Veterans began mailing in challenge coins with their unit insignias. Moss Point Diner hung them on the wall behind the register. Hundreds within months. Not as trophies, but as markers. Markers of return. Return to community, to dignity. To someone who never asked to leave but did. One night the lights flickered. Power outage across the block. For a moment the diner went still. Then a flashlight clicked on. Carla, she moved through the tables, checking on each person like always. When the power came back, everything felt brighter than before. Because sometimes all it takes is one steady hand to hold the dark at bay. And for most Point, that hand always belonged to her. Years from now, they'll still talk about that day. Not the viral clip, not the confrontation, but the quiet that followed. Because something shifted not just in Tillamook, not just in Oregon, but in everyone who watched someone fall and then saw a whole town rise. Moss Point Diner still serves the same burnt coffee. Carla still folds napkins by the window. Leo still sketches heroes with capes bigger than his imagination. But the world no longer sees it as just a diner. It's a compass. A place people drive hundreds of miles to find because they lost something they didn't know they had. There's no statue of Carla, no monument, just a small bronze plaque on the brick wall by the door. It says, "You are not alone. If you need to sit, we'll make room." Tour buses don't stop there, but battered pickup trucks do. So do nurses finishing double shifts, and kids unsure of who they are but certain they need to be near something steady. Sometimes Carla speaks to them. Sometimes she doesn't. But she always looks up, and somehow that's enough, because after everything, after the battles, the silence, the rising, she never asked to be a symbol. She just kept showing up. And when people ask about her locals, visitors, reporters, Big Mike always gives the same answer. She's the reason we remember who we are. There's a reason stories like hers outlive headlines. Because Carla Bishop didn't command a battalion in the end. She commanded attention. Not through noise, but through presence. Not through outrage, but through steadiness. Not by standing, but by refusing to fall. So if you're still wondering what strength looks like, what leadership, legacy, or lasting impact really means, don't look to the loudest voice. Look for the one still folding napkins. The one who doesn't need to move to shift the ground beneath her. That's where you'll find it. That's where you'll find her. Each year, on the anniversary of that day, something quiet happens. No parades, no speeches, just moments. A firefighter from Spokane leaves a coin on the windowsill before sunrise. A retired Army nurse from Nevada brings cookies as favorite. A teacher from Boys leads her class in writing letters not to Carla, but to someone who carried you. Some letters are mailed, some hidden in sugar jars, some folded into pockets by people who needed permission to feel again. No one organizes it, but it happens. At 7:00 a.m., Carla rolls in on time always. At 7:05, someone opens the door for her. Not because she can't, but because they can't. Inside, napkin folding resumes. But now there's a rhythm others have started copying. Second signal calls it the fold knife napkin, steady hands, quiet breath, one motion at a time. Rena's podcast ends each episode with, "If you're looking for a sign, this is it. Someone like Carla showed up for you, now you show up for someone else." Tourists still come, veterans still return. But more importantly, the stories ripple outward across base camps, cafeterias, break rooms, VA hospitals, school gyms. And when people ask why Carla never took a medal, never gave a White House speech, never let them make a movie, Big Mike just shrugs. She didn't need a bigger platform. She built a longer table.